And welcome to another exciting episode of the Mando Method Podcast. I'm your co-host, Armand Rosamilia.
And I'm the other co-host, Chuck Buda.
All right, Chuck. So this is exciting. This will be our first video recording as well. And it took us about 2 hours to get this darn thing to get everybody on the screen and everything. Not that if you're listening to the regular podcast, you even care or anything, but go to my YouTube. Go to Armand Rosamilia on YouTube and follow it, and it should be up there around the same time. Unless I totally screwed this up, then it won't make any sense at all. Two really good guests. So me and Chuck had talked about this a while ago actually Chuck had thrown it out there about bringing a guest or two on to basically talk about publishing. Because a lot of times every month, me and Chuck, we talk a lot about publishing, and it gets a little ridiculous just listening to the two of us talk every week. So having other people on makes this all the more exciting. But first, speaking of exciting, Chuck.
Yes?
Reaper's Brew Coffee. That's right, our sponsor. So Chuck has this cup. But look, Chuck, I don't know if you can see that. I have a cup here. Mine says, all I need is coffee and horror books. And you know how many people have this mug?
I don't have that one.
No, just me. Just me.
Ooh. All right, I'm a little offended now.
You should be. Made by Reaper's Brew just for me. He said, you know what, I want you to have the first one. So I am proudly drinking that. You know them well, reapersbrew.com. Horror-themed coffee, veteran-owned company. They have two flavors, Murder Mud, which is their regular, Electric Chair, which is the high caffeine, which is exactly what I'm drinking, and sounds like Chuck's also drinking that. And they also do subscriptions. So if you're watching the video, you can see behind me, I have all 13 of their serial killer mugs that my wife will not let me put into the cabinet. She says there's already too many mugs up there. In fact, what's funny is this mug has actually been sitting on the counter all week because there's literally no room for any more coffee mugs in my house. But I will keep collecting them. And hopefully Reaper's Brew will keep sending them to me. So you can get a subscription. So you can get either just a bag of coffee from them, or you could also get a subscription and you can get the mug every month as well, which is pretty cool. There was 12 of them, and then they put out a 13th. And hopefully they'll do a second set of serial killer mugs because there's obviously a lot more serial killers out there. And we could probably do several mugs. And I think if they slip in a Chuck Buda serial killer mug, I think that would be pretty cool as well.
But if I actually heard a rumor that I'm going to be on the future serial killer mugs.
That would be great. Good luck with that. You know, kill a couple people and they'll give you your own mug.
I do what I can.
Something to look forward to. So all you do is go to Reaper's Brew. You go to reapersbrew.com. And here's the cool part. If you use Mando at checkout, Mando, you get 10% off of new orders. Plus you receive a free gift. So check them out, reapersbrew.com. All right, Chuck. So we're gonna do this. We're gonna see if this even freaking works. I'm excited. Even if it doesn't work, we still get to hang out and talk to a couple of cool people. So let's start with, I guess, who you are. So we're gonna start with Chrissy. You go first.
Hi. Thanks for having me on. I'm not good at talking about myself. Well, that's a terrible quality for an author. But I'm a independent author. I'm from Indianapolis. I publish as Chris Garrison, but my friends call me Chrissy. And I have 10 books out now. I had fewer out the last time I talked to you. The latest of which is Trans Witch. So that's something I'm very proud of right now. The books, I should say, are science fiction, fantasy, and often stray into urban fantasy and steampunk. My urban fantasy has sometimes been called horror light, so it's not, but it was sort of accidental horror. I wasn't trying to write horror, but someone said, this is very suspenseful, it's horror. So I don't know if you knew Sarah Larson, but she always told me, no, it's really horror. So, and I have a podcast called the Alien Beer Podcast, which includes a science fiction serial that was getting close to being done. There's going to be 26 episodes, and I've written the last one just on Saturday, so I'm super excited about that. That's going to be a book too, so that'll be a number 11.
And I should also say it, Chuck, her podcast also here on Project Entertainment Network.
That's right. I love when you do that.
Yep, I plug Project Entertainment Network and its shows on each of my podcasts. So
Our other guest, she was just doing some stretching over there. I think she's preparing herself. So if you're done warming up, maybe.
Hello, thank you guys for having me on. My name is Lena, but I publish under LM Archer. I have one book out called Cool for the Summer, and I just released a second one called Born in Sickness. I love the cover. I'm an independent author. This is the first in a series called the Take Me to Church series. There are going to be 4. I also have one novella published, and I have a blog that you can find on my website, lmarcherofficial.com. I don't have a podcast. I'm fairly new to the podcast world, but I really like guesting on podcasts. So maybe one day that's something I'll venture into, although I don't think I'm ready for that quite yet. But I do really like talking, and I'll talk about myself. I am from West Virginia. I am not from a city, so I'm not even going to start telling you where in West Virginia, but I'm from West Virginia. And that's really about all you need to know. Oh, I write male romance novels, predominantly romance. They usually fall into a subgenre, usually dark fiction or something dark in there. And contemporary is typically another subgenre they fall into. And then Cool for the Summer was very rom-com-esque, and this one's definitely more on the darker side of things, especially in the later books.
Okay, cool. Chuck, you want to open it up to some questions or something?
Yeah, so actually, yeah, thank you, Armand. I appreciate that.
Oh, you're welcome.
I'll throw this out to our esteemed guests, being that we're all newer, we're not as, I guess, ingrained as Armand is in terms of our publishing careers. But starting off, I guess, for the three of us, and particularly I want to see what your opinions are. How do you both feel, or I guess, what have been your biggest challenges since starting your publishing career? Is in terms of, was it the writing aspect? Is it the marketing aspect? Is it the business side in terms of, long-term planning and stuff? I guess talk about some of the struggles that you've encountered in your way to reaching where you are now.
I'll let Chrissy go first.
I'll just say that I like writing. I like telling my stories, but I'm not really good at marketing. And I'm still looking for that sort of the sort of way in on that. I've been with a couple of small press publishers, and they didn't really manage to. They're wonderful people, but they didn't really manage to get much further than I have, as far from at least for my books. The latest book I have is doing pretty well, but I only probably, again, by accident, because the topic just happens to be topical. So, and people have word of mouthed it a little bit, I think, but it's still not not viral or anything. So I will never be able to quit my day job at this rate. So that's okay though.
There's no such thing as accidents, by the way.
Oh.
You were just in the right place at the right time.
Well, I should say accidentally in that I wrote the book because I wanted to write that book. I didn't go, what's a hot topic right now? Yeah. I just got upset about something and decided to write a book about it, or a book on that topic. And a lot of other people have that irritation right now. So they, I think that's one reason it's kind of spread around.
Cool.
Also have a good cover artist. So.
For me, the writing's the easiest part, honestly. I personally just feel like the writing is like the easiest part out of the whole journey. I'm not a very visually creative person. I'll be the first one to say that. I'm more creative with writing specifically. Obviously, hopefully I'm an author, I should be. But I'm not very visually creative. So I was lucky enough for this book series specifically to have someone who's a friend of mine offer to draw the covers for me, which is, the guy right here. He was drawn by a friend of mine. And then I had the idea and she brought it to life, thankfully. And then another friend of hers just so happened to see it, really like it, and want to help. So she's the one that created the full-on cover front and back. So I found that having a good network of friends has helped me much more than anything else. Another friend of mine does all of my editing. She edits professionally, but she's trying to get into creative writing, and she's using me as that stepping stone to do so. So it's just making really good connections as much as you can in the world that you're in. And I made those connections before I even really got into the author world. But I've carried them over into being an author, which I'm very fortunate for. I couldn't imagine not having the people that I have around me and doing this without them. I really, really couldn't. It probably wouldn't be half as beautiful. The end result wouldn't be half as beautiful without them. So yeah, I think the hardest thing for me has been probably marketing and reaching the general public. I have very limited resources and funds, so I don't have a lot of money to put into advertising. So I think, like I said, the hardest part would definitely be that getting it into the hands of the right people with limited funds.
I think that's the challenge for everybody. I mean, I've been doing this for 30 years, and that is, me and Chuck talk about that every week. That is the biggest challenge. But I like what you've both said. People tend to forget, as writers, they picture us sitting in the dark room by ourselves, and we do that for the most part. A lot of that, our time is spent there. But there's so many other people that help us. The other creative people, the people that are reading our stuff, the people that are doing the cover arts, the formatting, the editing, the beta readers, all of those people. And then there's the people out there that are friends and the extended friends that are fans of yours. I know for me, anytime I release something and somebody sends me a message or somebody reviews it, whatever, and I have no idea who this person is, I get such a kick out of that. Because I'm like, here's somebody that, for whatever reason, found me out there, and my book was either great enough or awful enough that they left a review. And a lot of times that's how me and Chuck met. Me and Chuck met because he read a couple of my books, and we just started going back and forth. And I think that's something that's really, really cool. So, for both of you, what's kind of the genesis of that for you? I mean, obviously we all wanted to be writers, but at what point did you actually sit down and start writing? And then at what point did the people really just, that first moment where somebody that isn't a friend or a family actually got in touch or read something?
You want me to go first again?
Yeah, you want to go for it.
We like Chrissy going first.
I've got a good story for how I got to started writing, but I guess they're two separate stories though. The first one was, I used to write a lot of short fiction and didn't really do much with it. I wrote all the way back to high school and some in college, but I didn't do anything with it. Didn't take myself very seriously. But my uncle was always a writer. He was 5 years older than me and more like a cousin, and he was very serious about writing, and he was very secretive about it. He didn't show it to anyone, and it was his passion. But he ended up dying young at 44 in 2007, and I thought it was the worst part of, not the worst part of him dying, but one of the worst things I could think of was that he never got published, and he never. I don't even know where what. We never found his writing after he was done. He hid it somewhere. We talked about posthumously publishing some of his stuff, but so I had all this grief in October of 2007, and so I sat down and did my first National Novel Writing Month, even though I've been talking about it for years. And I had 2 words to start my first book, and those were haunted and road trip, because what I knew about was my wife and I used to do paranormal investigating, amateur, ghost hunting club kind of stuff, and we did it for a lot of years. And so I thought I could write something involving ghosts. That's where the accidental horror comes in. And the thing my uncle and I used to do is just take off on road trips. We took off to Memphis to see Graceland, and we took off to during college. We ran off to during my spring break during college. We ended up going to the like Atlanta and Tybee Island and through the Smoky Mountains and stuff. And I just loved the adventures we used to go on. So I thought I'd make a book that was about those things, and it all developed from there. And I thought I'd only do it once just to honor him, but I've got the bug. So now I've got 10, almost 11 books. So as far as that first moment of, oh my gosh, someone is actually reading me I didn't ask to read it. I had been putting up little postcards and things in coffee shops, and they put a QR code on them, and I had them everywhere. They were just little postcards, and somebody saw it in my favorite coffee shop, which is now closed, Mojo, downtown Indianapolis, and they had scanned the barcode. They had gotten the book. They read it. They reviewed it, and it wasn't a particularly glowing review. It might have even been a 3-star review. But they said they admired my entrepreneurial spirit for putting out my own ads and making my own books and all that. And so I was like, somebody picked up what I was putting down there, Yeah. So it made me happy to. I didn't care that it was the review wasn't bad. It just wasn't, I think that you would have had to been, it would have had to been something spectacular for this person to give a 5-star. How it goes, you're reserving the 5 stars for something really big. Some people are more generous with them. It's not like you're going to run out of 5 stars, but this person, they said they had nothing bad to say about the story at all. They just gave it like 3 or 4 stars. I forget what. So, but it made me feel like people were listening that weren't just people who knew me. So
yeah, well,
there was a couple of years into it.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, my cat decided to break into the room. So you might see him. His name is Pepe Sylvia. I don't know if you guys are fans of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, but his name is Pepe Sylvia. But yeah, you might see him pop in. Anyway, the way that I got into writing, I don't know. I've always been writing, like ever since I was little. My sister and I used to come up with these like mystery novels that were like a mix of Scooby-Doo and R.L. Stine. So we used to write them on paper, and I would illustrate the covers. Like I would draw the covers and help her like plan the stories. And then as I got older, I started writing my own stories. And then I got into poetry because I was super emo in college. and then I kind of just stopped writing completely. I was just like, I'm really bad at this. I can't do this. I'm really bad at it. I'm never writing again. So I stopped writing and focused on, education and other type of things. And then I got back into writing through fandoms, actually, surprisingly enough. And they kind of gave me the confidence to pursue it as a career. It's definitely not a career yet, but that's the goal. And then as far as what I usually write about stuff that is personal to me. I don't really look at like trends or anything and say, oh, this is popular, I'm going to do a book on this. I typically write about something that I feel like is a story that needs to be told or something that's personal to me. And then the first review, actually, I remember I got quite a few reviews on Quote for the Summer, but I think most of them are people that knew me beforehand. But this one, this sticks out to me. It literally happened like a week ago. I just published Born in Sickness literally last Tuesday. And on Thursday, I posted a little cartoon on my Instagram that just said something like, after you're, it's a girl, and it says that empty feeling after you're done with a book or something along those lines. And I had just said, I hope someday I'll give this feeling to somebody. And this girl who I didn't know, like I did not know her. Like I want to make that clear. She messaged me on Instagram and said, "You gave this feeling to me last night. I stayed up until 4 a.m. reading your book, and I cannot wait for the second one." And
Oh.
I was just like trying not to cry. Like I texted my friends. I was like, they don't know me, and they messaged me on Instagram. She was just like, I can't. There's going to be a second one, right? I'm so excited about it. So that's like that one just kind of sticks out to me because the other ones I kind of just like push off and be like, oh, they probably know me or in some capacity. But this one, I know for a fact that she had no idea who I was, and she felt the need to, reach out to me and say that your book did this for me. Made me, I've stayed up to 4 o'clock in the morning reading it, and I feel empty now, and I cannot wait for the second one. So it was just a great moment for me, and I'll never forget it. So thank you, random girl named Anna.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Go ahead, Chuck.
I was going to comment, so I didn't know if you were going to. I was trying not to step on your feet. Yeah, it's funny because you both had kind of mentioned writing for yourself and kind of almost hiding it, and it was something that you did and you weren't sure about it. And I wasted a good 30 years doing that, writing, in the closet and afraid that sharing my work with the world, people would understand my thoughts and who I was. And, and that's extremely frightening to have somebody get inside your head. Because as much as you try to lean on the fact that it's fiction, there are real people, real experiences and emotions that come out in that writing somehow and somewhere, and most of it people probably can't put their finger on which parts belong to you as opposed to just somewhere out in the universe. But it's still an extremely scary proposition to put it out there. And I have over 20 books now, and I'm still scared every time I hit the publish button. And Armand, how many times a week do I text you and go, that's it, I'm done. I suck at this and I'm giving up.
I'm going to be honest. I have you blocked. So I just...
That's why you don't answer.
Every now and then I just send you a random message and just say, shut up and go write. Because I figure you're probably whining about it. But no, we go through this a lot. I mean, it's imposter syndrome never goes away. And, that's one of those things where, for me, I think it helps because it kind of grounds me. Sometimes I get very full of myself. I have an ego. And between my wife going, oh, you just signed this big contract. Great. Did you take out the garbage? That one always helps. And also just when I'm literally staring at a page and I don't know what comes next. And I know everything that I've written before that is awful. And I'm like, and I'll say to my wife all the time, oh my God, I hate this story. I just want to finish this thing. It's awful. And I do that with every story. And she laughs. Because she after 8 years of being with me, she realizes, okay, this is you go through the motions here with these stories, but you don't ever. I don't think you ever get away from that. I mean, have any of you ever written something you go, oh my God, that's perfect, this is a great story, or is it like, I could always do better?
I mean, I wouldn't call it ego, but I still like my old stories. I'll cringe at a few things. I'll see things that I've learned. There'll be a bunch of ly adjectives, or I'm wordier than I need to be, or and I'm also a different person than I was in 2007. So, but I still go back and reread my own books sometimes. If that's weird, I don't know, but some of it is remembering who I was when I wrote it, and some of it is I forget my own stories because it's been long enough that I go back and go, oh yeah, I forgot about that, and I'll laugh out loud at my own jokes. But but mostly at the dialogue will strike me funny because I forgot I said that, and I'm like, wow, I used to be a lot better at this than I am now. I'll say, because it's hard sitting down and writing, but when you read a book, you've got like compressed smarts in a way, because it takes you, hours and hours to write a chapter, but it takes you minutes and minutes to read it. So you can afford to sound really smart when you take hours to think out something that comes out in minutes. I probably don't sound nearly as smart talking right now as I do when I write, because I have to think about it as I'm saying it. So,
right. But I think what Chuck was getting at is that we all put a lot of our personality and we all, our fears and everything into that. So, like Christy, what you said before, which I thought was interesting. You were irritated, and that leads to this moment where you start writing about it, and it's not necessarily, okay, I want to write this and change the world, but it's, I want to give my view on a subject or whatever. And I find that all the time when I'm writing. It's people say, oh, you want to write what you write what you want to read, but a lot of times I want to write because I'm pissed off, and I want to hurt one of my ex-wives or something. I mean, I don't. I obviously, in the books I've killed them hundreds of times, but yeah, you don't want to be married to me. But so I mean, do you see that? Do you see a lot of your own personality?
Yeah, I mean, change. Like I said, I'm a different person than I was when I wrote it. So when I read it, I'll go, I wouldn't have written it that way now, and it's not because I'm necessarily better. It's just because my outlook has changed over time,
right.
Or the thing that was the bugaboo when I was writing, the thing I was using for writing fuel at the time is done. It's over. I might have had someone really hurt me. And, the second book in one of my series, I was all about letting go. I literally had that as and it was before Frozen, but I let go. It was the theme of it. And I look back now and think, yeah, that was really hard to let go of, but I don't even think about it now. So when I reread it, it puts me back in that moment where I was still hurting from that thing. I want to get back. Can I rewind to Imposter Syndrome?
Sure.
I saw a meme that really that I wanted to mention that really hit home. It said, "Are you good enough to have imposter syndrome?" And I went, "That's just mean. That is just mean."
That's mean on a couple different levels.
I introduced myself as an independent author, and I was trying to make it sound like I believed it. I do. I'm an author. Just, I had to put in there though that I'm not going to quit my day job anytime soon. Right. There's your imposter syndrome.
Right. Yeah.
It's all of us have it. So.
Yeah. It's something I struggle with everything in life. Even, I don't even like to say it to my friends. Like my mom, my friends are like, "Oh, you're an author. You're a published author," and I'm like, "Yeah, but anyone could publish." I'm really bad about shrugging it off, being like, "Well, anyone can publish on Amazon." It's true, but can anyone sell some books on Amazon? Is anyone selling the books that you're selling on Amazon? So it's a constant argument. I can't tell you how many times a week I text my alphas who read along with me as I write. I text them at least, once or twice a week, being like, "I finished this scene. It's crap, but just letting you know it's crap." And they're always like, "It's not going to be crap. It's going to be fine." I'm just like, "No, I finished it. It's crap. just read it. You'll see." And usually I'll go back and I'll read it and be like, "Okay, well, maybe this isn't as bad as I thought it was." Because something Chrissy had just said, when you're writing it, it feels like it takes a long time to get it out on paper. And it takes you a long time to get to that point. But when you read it back, it's like, "Oh, this isn't as bad as I thought it was." So, and I don't have any really old books I can look back on. I did find a handwritten book that I wrote when I was probably 17 in an old box somewhere. It's on notebook paper. It was so cringy. I cringed so bad reading. It was written in first person, which is something I cannot personally stand. I can't write in first person these days. I don't know, something about it. There's a mental block there for me. But and it was written in first person, and it was just so bad. And so I've actually thought about after I get a few more books published, maybe doing something on Twitter where I react to reading my own book, because I think it could be interesting. And I think it could also give a nice behind the scenes look at it. Like, oh, well, I thought of this scene because of this, or this part of his character is a little bit based on me in this way. So yeah, I'm not far enough in my author career to look back and be super cringy, but I can feel it in 5 years. I know it. And even now, I'm writing a trilogy right now that's mafia based, and I think it's better than what the series I'm putting out now, because I've learned a lot in those few years between or whatever, and I've structured it well, and I've learned a lot about writing and myself and my voice. But my friends are like, oh, really, the Take Me to Church series, and one that's read it has been like, oh, this is my favorite one that you've written so far. I'm just like, it's not that great though. It's great, it's lovely, I love it, it's one of my favorite things I've ever written. But at the same time, I can, as I'm reading it for editing, I see where I can improve. But another part of me wants to leave it as is because it shows my improvement as I move on. So it's like a weird struggle.
Just want to say I really like first person.
That's fair. To each their own. I just can't do it anymore. I used to write in first person. My therapist says it's something about my disconnect with myself.
It's hard. I think first person is not, it's funny. It's natural to us as we walk around and talk, but to tell a story in first person is very challenging because you have to you have to incorporate other people and their, I guess, perceptions, but how do you do that without being in their head, So, I could do it because I have multiple personality disorders, so stop talking to me. But, that's got to be very difficult. I struggle with first person. Armand knows because I've talked about wanting to toy around and do that, and I just haven't been able to conquer that. But let me, and I love the way that this conversation is going, by the way. Can I throw out more questions, Armand? Or
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Okay. Talk about, I guess, your process. When you write, do you write every day or on set days? Do you have a schedule? Do you look to get a certain word count? How do you monitor your writing? Or do you just write when the muse strikes you? And I guess this time I'm going to throw a curveball. LM Archer, you go first.
Wow.
Whoa.
Sorry. This just took a crazy spin.
For me, let's see. My books always start with a general idea. Usually it comes from a song, as weird as that is. But I get a lot of inspiration from music or a whole album. I'll just listen to that album and be like, this needs to be a book. I can just see it. So I usually get a lot of inspiration from music, and then so it starts somewhere in there. And then from there, I'm an outliner. I know a lot of people are pantsers. I am a hardcore outliner. I plan scene chapter by chapter, scene by scene. I have it planned, and I don't usually start writing until I have it all planned, or I try to have it planned at least, as much as I can. And I usually know where it's going, and then usually each chapter or each scene or something like that will have a song that I associate with it. Because it just kind of helps keep me motivated. If I'm ever stuck, I usually talk to my alphas about it, and they help me get unstuck they always joke that because I shoot down a lot of their ideas, and they joke that they always just say what I know I don't want until I get to a point where I know what I want to do. But I talk to them if I get stuck. I don't really shoot for a word count. I try to finish roughly 2 chapters a week if I can, and my chapters range usually somewhere between 2,000 to 3,000, maybe 4,000 words, depending on what is needed in that chapter. So I try to do 2 chapters a week and stay on that schedule. And then, so that's what, like 8,000 to 10,000 words ish a week.
Wow.
But it really just depends on my mood, my muse. Like last week, I didn't get crap written. Like I literally just, because I had the release and my time was all of my free time, because I work full time as well. So all of my free time was going toward the release and, talking to people about it and trying to market it as much as I can. So last week I really didn't get anything written. And then, so it really just depends on the day. Some days I'll sit down and I'll like have a good 3 hour to sit down and I'll write like 3,000 words. And then some days I write 500 and be like, oh, this is fine. It's just, everything's burning down. It's fine. It's whatever. And as far as keeping motivated, like I said, if I can talk to someone about it, I find that it helps my motivation because it gets me excited to write it. And I don't know if that's, Chrissy's shaking her head, so I'm assuming that's true for others. But
Yes, for me.
yeah, I find that if I just if I'm not, I hate writing fluffy scenes, I call them. It's just my least favorite thing to write in the entire world. Funnily enough, I think it was Armand had said that, you write what you like to read, which is untrue for me. I like to write angst and suspense, and I hate reading that. I love to write like angst and suspense and like things that really get your heart pumping and your tears working, your tear ducts working. But as far as like writing it goes, or as far as reading it goes, I don't like to do that. Yeah, so I usually get stuck on like really fluffy romantic scenes and I have to talk about them several times before I'm happy with it's starting to write it. And it's usually like they're like my alphas are, and they're like, go to your room and write eventually. So I just like force myself to write it, and that's usually when they get the text message of this is crap. They're like, oh, it's so sweet. I'm like,
Wow. I think we're complete opposites in a lot of ways. I started off as a pantser. I'm a bit more of the in-between plantster, where I do some. My planning is minimal. I'll have a concept and I'll know where it's going to end up, or I want it to end up anyway at the beginning. But that'll change because if the characters turn out to be different than I intended, they may steer things a little differently, and they'll say no way would I do what you plan for me unless you write me differently. And I've already written, I shouldn't be arguing my characters, but so a lot of times what I end up doing is this reverse outlining where I'll write an outline for what I've already written and look for the trend, and then I'll say, what do I want to happen in the rest of the book? And so I'll do this virtually now, but I started out by writing them on note cards. I would write down scene with, chandelier falling, and then another one that says there has to be a motorcycle with a baseball bat fight scene. And then I'll put that there and I'll say, somebody dies, don't know who yet, and then I'll take those and I'll shuffle them in the order that they have to happen. This can't happen before that happens. And then at the end, I have something like an outline, and those end up being like the main thing that happens in a chapter. And so I'll have one line per chapter, and those will, and sometimes an extra chapter is necessary. I'll write a chapter and too much happens and it'll become 2 chapters. And sometimes something happens in that chapter that necessitates another chapter get added because it needs to be resolved later. So it comes off a lot more disorganized than what you're talking about anyway. There's planning, but it's very fluid planning. My method, though, is, most of my books, earlier books especially, were written during NaNoWriMo, so they were written as binge writing. One of my friends talks about binge writing, how she's not capable of binge writing, and it makes it sound like an addiction. Give me some more of that old time writing, and it's not like that. Certainly I can't think of much else during November if I do NaNoWriMo, and this year that was on purpose. I had some bad things happening at I had a sewage disaster where half my house got torn up because I had because we had to clean because the toilet backed up and flooded and blah. And it took 5 months and a little more to get that completely done. But November was full of people hammering and sawing and tearing up my floors, and my cats going crazy and me going crazy and not having a kitchen to cook in. And so my escape was writing about novel, and that's that Transwitch. And so having that binge, this is my X amount of time per day where I am writing something. That's very word count oriented, because you have to get to win Nano, you do 50,000 words in 30 days. So you have to do a certain amount, and I usually shoot for 2,000 words a day so that I can take a couple of days off later. And I end up writing more than, in the end, I end up writing more than 50,000 words. And this time I went over by a week and continued writing after, but it wasn't as bingey. It was more, I think, given probably the healthiest method I have is setting aside a few nights a week where I take an hour and write, just that hour, whatever comes out when I write, however many words. I forgive myself if I write, only 50 words because I was busy outlining, or I feel really good when I do 2,500 words in an hour. That's rare. Most of the time I clock in at about 1,200 words an hour. But the longer I give myself to write, the less per unit of time gets out. So if I give myself 10 minutes to write, I can write a 500-word little micro story in 10 minutes if I have to. It's not going to be a necessarily good one, but it's going to be a story, and it's going to be 500 words, and I'm going to do it in 10 minutes. But double the amount of time, I'm not going to write 1,000 words, because I have to sit back and go, writer fuel, what's next? And then if I give myself an hour, then, but that's where I get 1,200 words. And if I give myself 2 hours, I'm sure I'd have maybe, I don't know, 1,600 words, because it's gonna spread out, because I know I have more time. But I do some funky rituals at the beginning of my writing sessions. And you were talking about music, and one of the things I do is I put on my playlist, and the first 3 songs on the shuffle, I try and think of how do those apply to my current chapter for sort of randomization. What kind of elements can I think of while listening to those songs? Can I incorporate into this chapter? And sometimes I throw them out entirely, or I'll do a mulligan and get new songs. But a lot of times just listening to them will, with where I am in the story, will kind of say, it would be cool to have that in my current chapter, sort of like elements in a short, in a writing challenge. But they're soft challenges. I want to have something from there. I don't have to have something from in there. So that's the weird ritual I have. I write down thoughts about those songs, pen and paper, and then I sit. Then I get and write, and I go, that's when I get my 1,200 words. I'm babbling.
Do you find? I find that for most, especially my longer projects, because I'll have Spotify on in the background all day, and it all of a sudden a couple of songs will hit me, and I literally will stop. Like today, I'm writing, and I stopped, and I'm like, all right, this chapter, this part has become a certain band. And so I'll listen to all of their music. Like there's certain bands that I grew up with, a band from Jersey that was big in the 90s, not big, but big for being from Jersey, Dramarama. I'll put on all of their albums, and I can write an entire book just listening to maybe those 50 or 60 songs over and over and over, where I'm listening to that for days on end as I'm writing. So, I mean, is music more of the background? I mean, obviously you're talking about specific things, but as you're writing, is there music just kind of playing in the background, or after your initial thing like that, Chrissy, is it slip to the background, or are you still following it?
Well, initially I did what you talked about. I actually did sort of playlists. I would play the kind of music that the story was evoking, like when I wrote the Haunted Road Trip stories. The Road Ghosts is what it ended up being called, but I put on classic rock and roll, because that's what you play on a road trip, at least that's what I used to, like CCR and I don't know, any movie with a road trip has like classic rock going on. So that's what I themed it after that. And but the problem is I have a hard time writing when there are words to listen to. My attention gets divided. So as much as sometimes I'll play a playlist when I'm not writing to inspire me for when I am writing, I'll have like make a playlist that's based on the main character of my story. I can't listen to that very well I can't write very well if I'm listening to that because of the words. I want to think about it too much. Mm-hmm. So I play a lot of movie soundtracks. I play one of my favorites is the Sherlock Holmes 2009 Hans Zimmer soundtrack. It's very quirky and high energy and has strange instruments, but it's all dun 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 dun, and it keeps the forward momentum going with writing. And the Tron Legacy soundtrack, I love the Tron Legacy soundtrack for the same reason, but it's electronica, so it's more sci-fi and more, but it's also very fast-paced, so it keeps the word count going. And I've listened to Star Wars and Star Trek. Wrath of Khan is a good one. Search for Spock is a good one. Just because they're all instrumental and all action oriented in the movie, so the pace of the music, anyway, that's me in music. It's very different what I want to listen to normally and what I listen to when I write. So
I'm a lot like Chrissy in that way. I don't listen to music as often when I write, and if I do listen to music when I write, it's either music that I've listened to a lot, so I don't like really have to pay attention to the words, or it's like Disney soundtrack, like because again I've listened to it a lot. I grew up with Disney, like Little Mermaid soundtracks and stuff, so I'll sometimes put that on, and then. Like sometimes I don't like hear a song and want to write a chapter. Sometimes I find that a song fits a chapter later. Like what I've been writing recently, I've been struggling because I'm like, I haven't really had any like an album or a song that really resonates with me for what I've been writing. And I'm like 6 chapters into it and it's just not normal for me to get that. And then I think I was randomly listening to something the other day and I was like, oh my God, this is perfect. And then I switched to another song of the same album and I was like, oh my God, this is perfect. So I ended up having like 7 songs of that album that I really felt like fit what I'm currently writing. And with the Take Me to Church series, pretty much that entire series is metal rock music, and most of it is like emo crap that I grew up with, like late 2000s, like Green Day, like stuff like that. There's a lot of Metallica in this moment, a lot on there. Like I really like metal bands, so a lot of like the religious trauma / angst that comes with metal band writing worked really well for the whole premise of the story. So I found myself listening to that a lot when I wasn't writing and then incorporating those themes into the book. And then, so yeah, it really just depends on what the book calls for. Like the first one in the Mafia series, strangely enough, I felt like it really called for like folky sounding, like Amigo the Devil murder folk music. And I don't know why, but it did. And a lot of the songs really worked for that. So in my head, at least. But yeah, I don't typically listen to music when I'm writing unless it's something that like either I know won't spark something or I just know it too well that I don't pay attention to what they're actually singing.
I had this image of you when you talked about playing Disney soundtracks, but you said you wrote a lot of angst and pain and stuff. I thought she's listening to like Under the Sea and writing the world is pain, and
that's accurate. Like on the outside, I'm bubbly and happy, but my writing is just not. So it's accurate.
So for you, Chuck, which black metal albums are you listening to while you write?
Oh my God, a ton of Immortal and Godseed. Yeah, I agree with Chrissy and LM Archer because I can't have words in my head because it's too left brain, right brain, and I got to be focused on the words. So for me, yes, you're making the joke, but for me, I get a ton of words out. Like Chrissy said, I could sit down and bang out like 1,100, 1,200 words in an hour if I'm listening to Norwegian black metal. I do like some of the soundtracks though, because some of the darker soundtracks for movies and stuff can help. And if
like
I'm
those
looking
Disney ones, yeah.
no, the Disney ones are too happy. And
Perfect.
yeah, and if you really want something messed up to play with your head, then I listen to Lustmord, which is it's electronica, but it's extremely discordant and really messes with your head. And I get into some dark spaces when I listen to that. But yeah, and I know you, Armand, you listen to this stuff like you were talking about Dramarama, but I know you listen to, other metal bands, and it's stuff that you've heard thousands of times, so the words don't bother you. But I can't do that. Even though I've played it 1,000 times, I start singing the songs and then I can't type. So.
No, I could put Iron Maiden on, for instance, and I could listen to like 10 hours without knowing which song I just heard, because I've heard it a million times. My problem sometimes is when I just put Spotify on, like, where you get like daily mix or something, and they hit a brand new song by a band, or a band a song I've never heard. That always stops me, because because I get excited. I'm like, ooh, brand new Bowling for Soup song, and I'm like, stop everything. Let me see what's going on. Oh, they got a new album out, and then 20 minutes later, I'm playing their new album, and I'm not working. But I'll put on a lot of black metal, though. I mean, when you were here, it's funny because our buddy J.C. Walsh, he's another guy. He loves metal like we do, but he loves all this new stuff, which I'm an old man. I don't listen to any of that. But he'll always go, oh, listen to this band. It's just like Exodus. And I'm like, then I'll just listen to Exodus. But he always throws me new bands, but I can't put those on, like you said, if they have lyrics. Like if it's black metal, it all sounds the same. It's all great to just put it in the background and just listen to it. But I think for me, that's always been, I have to have noise. I can't write when there's nothing going on. It drives me crazy. So in the morning before my wife leaves, if she's like getting ready or she's on a call or whatever, I don't even bother writing, because I know, number one, at some point I have to stop, get out of that zone, and tell her to have a good day and all that. But also there's no noise, because her car's leaving, and automatically Spotify is like on 10, and it's blasting. I mean, it's like so freaking loud, but I don't even hear it once I start writing, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I've been having to use music more since I guess it's not just more. I often used music when I would go elsewhere to write, because you really can't do that as much right now, although it's getting closer. But I'd go to a coffee shop or a brew pub or someplace and write, because the ambient movement actually helped me, I don't know, it gave me some energy to write, I think. There was more than just static, the same room I sit in every time. So, but I can't have other people's conversations messing with my writing, because other people talking or a television on is the worst. I can't think. I just can't concentrate, and because my brain wants to follow whatever's going on around me. And so I would have to put in the earbuds and listen to music of any sort to blot it out. And well, my wife and I have been home here for a year now, and she's often in the next room watching TV, and I can't go to Starbucks to be on my own. I got to stay here in the office, and so I shut the doors and I put in earbuds, and like I was going to a coffee shop and use music almost every time I write now, just for I don't know if I could go back to silence. I used to not write with less noise, so I don't know. It's a funny thing for me. Silence is, I can write in silence, but I can't write with words, talking, especially going on around me.
So talking doesn't really bother me, because I'm not an auditory person, which is both a blessing and a curse, because my husband can be talking to me and I just won't even understand what he's saying. But at the same time, it works for me in some ways, because I can like put a TV show on that I've watched 1,000 times, like Archer or South Park or Friends or something that I've watched a lot, and I don't have to pay attention to it, and I can just write as it's on in the background. Sometimes music is the same way, but I'm more like Armand in the way that, like, if it's a new song, I get distracted. If it's a song that I've heard 1,000 times, I'm fine. But if it's new, then I get distracted. Just like if it's a new movie or a new show, I can't do it. But if it's something that I've watched a lot, like I've watched every episode of Bob's Burgers like 1,000 times, I think I'm fine to like write during it. So yeah, I'm not an auditory person, so I don't get super distracted by the sound of talking. Just because I don't pay attention to people who are talking to me. Sometimes I have to really focus, like stare at their lips.
I know that you can't do it now with the masks either, can you?
Yeah, makes it even harder. Like my coworker will come in and start talking to me. I'm just like, what'd you say? Like I have to ask again.
In public, it's bad for that. No, the only way I could hear people over crowds was by staring at their mouth, like you're talking about, and now it doesn't do me any good.
That's good. All right, Chuck, you got any last question?
Yeah, it being indie authors, what would you hope? I guess, what changes would you like to see that would benefit indie authors? And it could be anything. It could be writing tools, social media, ways to promo ourselves. I guess if you had your druthers, what would you like to see? Something outside of yourself that would work better for you in your writing? It's a tough one.
That is a tough one.
I'll let Lena go first on that
one. Oh,
nice.
Well, I could jump in to help you out, because like things that I think of is, I just think of, again, going back to what you were both saying earlier, is getting new eyes on your stuff. So how do you do that? A lot of the models today are pay to play. You either hope that somebody at BookBub will smile on you and allow you to get a BookBub deal, but you still got to pay for it, or you got to pay for Facebook ads or Amazon ads. I guess for me, I would hope that somehow Goodreads would maybe take the ball and run with it, because it's tied to Amazon, and it's it is a space for authors and readers. If somehow they figured out a way to make Goodreads almost like a working social media model for books, so that would incorporate advertising, promotions, author groups, whatever, but really be a true community for authors and readers, as opposed to what's out there. So that would be like one of my, I guess, wish list items. But what do you guys think?
I'd like to see a viable alternative to Amazon, especially for indie authors. We can put things out there. There are places, but most people just go to, it's on the Kindle, period. Or it's hard to. I put out the latest book on. I've been going through Ingram now instead of just Amazon, and I told people you could buy the book on the Barnes and Noble website, and they were like, "There's still a Barnes and Noble website," and it was disheartening. I don't know. I guess I'd like to see more people complain about Amazon being this behemoth, that $1 trillion behemoth that has a stranglehold on everything, but nobody goes anywhere else. So, and it's like Facebook. There's no there. Facebook is, everybody complains about Facebook, but there's hardly any alternative that's not kind of a cesspool of people who all think the same way. And I suppose Twitter's an alternative, but it's not really the same thing as, at least it's independent. I guess it'd be nice to see a Twitter level outlet for books, in that, if Amazon is the 800-pound gorilla and Facebook is another 800-pound gorilla, having something, a couple 100 pounds on our side would be good. That way you could plug your stuff through something that isn't that isn't as mainstream, but is accessible and not as you're not at the mercy of the dreaded algorithms.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah,
Everybody, it just seems like certain people know how to play those games with the algorithms, and if you don't have enough of likes or stars or reviews, you are not making it in the algorithm. You won't get seen. So.
Yeah, I've seen like how I think I've seen on Amazon. I'm still fairly new to all of this, so I think that was one of the reasons why this question is harder for me to answer because I don't know what I need quite yet. Like I'm still like I literally haven't even been a published author for a year. June will be my 1 year anniversary of publication, so I don't know what I need. I'm still learning. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm still learning like all of this. Like it's been like a huge learning experience for the past year. But I am fairly active on Twitter. So I hate like feeling like I have to force myself to be active on other social medias. And as a millennial, I feel like I should know how to like run social medias and whatever, but I freaking hate like the difference between like photos, Instagram. Okay, well, how do I make this a photo? Like no one wants to see your coffee cup that you posted 3 times or something like that. So it's one of those, for me, it's that frustration that comes along with like doing it all yourself. Like it would be nice if they made like a platform like something like Hootsuite. I know that's a thing, but that's like free or something that you could use to like on all these platforms. Because like on Goodreads, I'm like, okay, well now I have to upgrade Goodreads. I have to go to Twitter. I have to go to Facebook. I have to go to my Facebook readers group. I have to go to Instagram, then Amazon, and then X, Y, and Z. So it's just like trying to remember all of this stuff and what goes well on what platform. Because certain things do better on Facebook than they do on Instagram, or vice versa. Or on Facebook, you can pay for ads. On Twitter, ads are outrageously expensive. And now there's TikTok that's thrown in there. So it's also keeping up with all of this stuff because TikTok is fairly new. But a lot of people have found success on Book Talk, which is like, the hashtag on TikTok that authors use. So I have a TikTok, but I haven't like quite figured out how I could utilize it. I'm not creative enough for that, I think sometimes, but how to appropriately utilize it. And there's always going to be something new as far as social media goes, and knowing what's popular and what's not. And it's that frustration, that like doing it all yourself frustration. I don't have a PR person that I can like tell to tweet about this on this day. Like I just don't. Everything you see on my Twitter is me. Everything you see on my Facebook is me. So it would be, if it was a little bit more user friendly for that type of thing, that would be lovely. Oh, that's something I want. Facebook. I hate this about Facebook. Twitter and Instagram make it really easy to switch between like profiles. On Facebook, you're not allowed to have a profile that is an alias of you. You're allowed to have a page or a group, but like, so I'm not technically supposed to make an LM Archer just profile, and they make it difficult to switch between profiles on Facebook. So like on Twitter, you just hold it down, go to your other profile, and you're good to go. But Facebook, you have to, if it's not a group or a page, it's an actual profile that I could make as an author, as my author profile. I'm technically not supposed to do that because it's an alias, and it makes it impossible to switch. So it would be nice if Facebook lifted that, like alleviated that aspect of it, and let you have multiple Facebook accounts for various aliases and who you are, instead of, I know that they want it to be real and you're sticking to a page. But it's really frustrating because I feel like I don't want my personal life to intertwine too much with my author life. So I hate that my personal Facebook page is even remotely connected to my author page. I'm not like ashamed of what I write or being an author. I just know that my incredibly religious mother would not appreciate me writing books about breaking down the foundation of her religion. Like, she wouldn't appreciate that. Neither would any of her family members or my family members. So I wish that is something that I do wish could happen, that Facebook would like almost allow like Twitter and Instagram, where you have different accounts and you can use them for different things.
Yeah, that's definitely a good point. Hopefully we'll get to that.
I don't even have a TikTok account. I don't think they let Gen X on there.
They do.
Yeah,
They do.
Yeah, I don't know. I have twerking videos and it hasn't gone viral yet, so I'm giving up.
Well, I can't dance, and apparently it's all about dancing to music or something.
No, you'd be surprised. I had a TikTok that got like, the most I've gotten is like 3,000 views, and it pissed a lot of people off, but it was quite funny. So like I look at mostly like book talk or the atheist side of TikTok. So it's fun to piss a lot of people off on that, on that aspect of it.
All right, well, this has been a lot of fun, Chuck. I think this has been a success.
It's great.
Would definitely have to do this again. I appreciate you both coming on and being our guinea pigs for this one. So, where can people find you out there? We'll start with Chrissy again.
You can find. I have a WordPress site that I push everything out from to other sites, but the source is sillyhatbooks.com, and I have a Chris Garrison Facebook and a EC Garrison Twitter account. So, but mostly if you just go to sillyhatbooks.com, you can find my contact information under the About tab.
And then for me, you can find my contact information on lmarcherofficial.com. That has, it's under the About tab or the contact. That has my email and all of my social media accounts. My social media accounts all have the same @. It's LM Archer Books. So Twitter, LM Archer Books, Facebook, Instagram, all of that. I'm mostly active on Twitter. I admit that freely. You'll get my personality mostly coming through on Twitter. But I am active on the other stuff as well. But you can find me on that, and then TikTok as well as everything else, except I'm not super active on TikTok. I'll get there though, probably when it's like old news because
Right.
That's me. But yeah, LM Archer Books for everything, and then Amazon just l.m.archer. Goodreads is the same. And I'm pretty open about communication and contacting, so feel free to come chat. I like to chat about everything.
Maybe I'll hit you up about TikTok at some point, and I can make an incredibly embarrassing TikTok video.
Let's do it.
Well, thanks for coming on again. That was really awesome, and had a lot of fun. You know what else is awesome, Chuck?
Reaper's Brew.
Reaper's Brew coffee. That's right, with my special mug that no one else has. Although by the time this airs, maybe people will have it. Who knows? I'm out of coffee, which means we got to wrap this thing up because I start getting a headache if I don't drink coffee every 14 seconds. But check out reapersbrew.com, and the two flavors: Murder Mud, which is the regular, Electric Chair, which is the high caffeine, and use Mando at checkout, MANDO. You get 10% off of new orders, plus you receive a free gift. Check them out, reapersbrew.com. All right, we're going to wrap this bad boy up, and thank you so much, really. This was a lot of fun, and if you want to be a guest on the Mando Method, too bad. I have to choose you, and so you can try. You could beg. If people want to beg me, feel free. Our two guests here, they beg for hours. They sent me TikTok videos begging.
Forever.
Where do I send the bribe? I forget.
Right. If you're only listening to this, you missed the pack where Chrissy gave me the frown and the shake of her head when I said that look of, I don't think so. So I thought that was pretty good. All right, everybody. We will do this again next week.
Thank you. Bye.